Well, hello. This is Dean Tenney. I'm coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. We have finally made it to Critical Function 4 on the Series 7 FINRA content outline. I highly recommend that you go ahead and print out this PDF on the FINRA website. Use it to go through these explications, which are designed more as an intellectual inventory for yourself on things you're supposed to be. No, you pick up a couple questions here, you points. I think yes, but it's no substitute for the lectures, doing the reading, you know, watching your videos from your provider or lectures we have here for you on the YouTube channel. So just want to make sure you put it in the proper context. That critical function 3, which is the most important critical function, according to the test writing committee, to being in the business as a securities professional. And that was 91 questions. As you can see here, this is 11% of the Series 7. It's 14 questions. And so 4.1, I'm going to try and do 4.1 and 4.2 together in this explication. And that would leave us with just 4.3, which is margin, as our final explication. I haven't decided if this will be an instant up on the YouTube channel. Probably so, because I have a very loyal subscriber and he's testing Monday. And so to put this out for a premiere past Monday would mean it wouldn't do him any good. And he's a big fan of these. When I started the explications on critical function 1, wasn't sure what the feedback would be, whether people found these explications helpful or not. And the feedback has been that people find them helpful. So as long as people find them helpful, I'm more than willing to continue the activity. We've done a complete explication of the test specifications for the SIE. We're finishing up the explication of the 7. As you can see here, we got a little bit more to go. We've started the explication on the 65, 66. That's what we'll turn to after we get the 7 done, finish that up. And then we have 63 and 6, which are at the tail end of whenever we get this stuff done. All right, well, let's get started. So explication of yields. So again, this comes up over and over and over again. And so this is probably not the first time you've heard of this or we've talked about it. But when you're advertising yield, like for example, in our offering sheet, I say, hey, I'd like to put you on Joe, the offering sheet for the firms my broker dealer has an inventory and is willing to sell. And so I'm going to be showing him an offering sheet, or I'm going to be advertising in some way bonds. It's the same thing. And if I'm showing you a bond advertising a quote, like in an offering sheet of we have an inventory, if it's a discount or par bond, we're going to quote yield to maturity. And remember, if it's a premium bond, we're going to quote yield to call. By the way, I had a candidate in a class, and she had shown me that the bond desk recommendations for customers and munis, and she was kind of excited how helpful they were. And I said, well, if your client buys all those bonds, that'll be a good day on the bond desk. What I suggested she do is check with a compliance officer, because how she had put it in the format that she was going to give it to the customer had all these nice juicy coupons, but most of those bonds were at a premium. And she should have had a column there where it shows them what the yield to call is, because it's unlikely we're going to get that. Types of orders. Again, in the explications, we don't go through everything. We go through the things that we know are in the test, or comment on things that haven't shown up, and who knows when they'll be back in. And so trade execution activities is mainly this idea that I have to get to the best execution. And that means, when I'm looking at a quote, I should try and get the customer the best quote, and the best quote is typically going to be the inside market, also known as the inside quote. And what that means is, what I'm interested in making sure my client gets is the highest bid if the customer is a seller, and the lowest ask if my customer is a buyer. Types of orders. Firm, it means that, if I'm a market maker or, a dealer in the security, and I give you a quote and I say, 15, 10, 15. Well, let me get a different color here. I try and do different colors just so you can see if you're looking at this, what is a comment that Dean has made as part of the explication and what is actually the FINRA document that we're working from. So anyways, here it says types of securities quotes. Here, firm means what I give you. Let's try it again. 1510, 1520, 5 by 8. So, if I give you a quote like that, that's considered firm. And so I stand willing here to buy 5 round lots, 500 shares at 1510 into my inventory and 800 shares at 1520 out of my inventory. And I'm required to give you a firm quote, a bid, and an ask. Now, subject means subject to confirmation. And so you say, hey, Dean, what are you trading the security at? And I say, I think last I saw, I think I'm trading it at 15 something. Just coming back from lunch, and I haven't sit down at my desk. You might want to say, well, Dean, why don't you get your butt in your chair and give me a quote? So subject means subject to confirmation. And that's when I don't give you a bid and an ask. I don't give you size. And then you would be saying, well, Dean, why don't you give me that, not a subject quote, but give me a firm quote. Firm quote is bid and ask. Now, remember the minimum obligation I have in a quote, if I don't give you size, if I just say 1510, 1520, my minimum obligation is 100 shares either side. And then remember, if I don't honor that, either that 100 shares or whatever I'm displaying, that's a prohibited practice, very testable, known as backing away. Okay, types of orders here, all or none. If you get this, it'll be A, B, C, D, and you just got to distinguish between the various ones, right? So all or none is a qualifier I add to the order. And that means I want all of my fill in one transaction, but I'm willing to wait. So, the timing is the key here. So I want the order filled in its entirety. Let's get a different color. I want the order filled in its entirety. All of it. That's what that means. And, but I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to wait. But that willing to wait for it to fill. So, I say, hey, what happened to my all or none order? You said, well, Dean, we're still waiting to fill that. I know these explications, you get tired of me saying this, but, I have a lecture on that types of orders. I highly recommend it. I think it's, you watch that, you understand it, you would be good to go. So I'm not going to elaborate a whole bunch on these types of orders other than the explication. Remember, the explication is an intellectual inventory. It's not an actual lecture of this stuff. But fill or kill, I want the order filled in its entirety, but I'm not willing to wait. I mean, it's pretty, it is what it says it is, order in its entirety. But if I can't get it right now, kill it. Not willing to wait. I want it all and I want it now. Well, I want a complete fill. Meet or cancel. Now, meet or cancel is kind of like the fill or kill on that I want it right now, but unlike fill or kill, let's see where my thing goes. Yeah, let me get a different color here. I want the order, I will accept partial execution. So unlike, where the thing does that sometimes. I will accept partial execution, but I will want it now. So partial execution. Yeah, let me just get out my other annotation tool. It starts swishing stuff up. I don't know why it does that. I will accept partial execution, but I want immediate fill. Just let me give you some examples. If I say buy 1,000 shares, all or none, I want 1,000 shares, but I'm willing to wait. If I say buy 1,000 shares, fill or kill, I want 1,000 shares. I want it now. If not, cancel the whole thing. If I say 1,000 shares immediate or cancel, my broker says, Dean, you got 300 shares. We canceled the 700. So it's the difference in the timing. All right, let's see back now. Our next one that we get tested on, this one does show up quite a bit. And this one is a market not held order. And there's a couple test questions about a market not held order. The first question about a market not held order is who has it. It's held by the floor broker. And what's it do? Market not held means I'm telling my floor broker not to tell anybody that he has the order and execute it at whatever time and price he thinks looks good. So market not held means he's not displaying the market order to the market. Usually have rules that I have to display customer orders to the market. But if he says, Dean, make it not held, he's saying that I don't have to display it to the market and use my best judgment about time and execution. Now, the trick question about that, remember, time and price is execution. That's called getting equals execution. And the point is that we don't need discretionary authority to make decisions about execution. So that's an acceptable order without trading authorization to say, Dina, buy 1,000 shares, market not held. That's an acceptable order without authority. Remember, I only need trading authorization if I'm making a decision about action, asset, or amount. Market on close. Market on close means I want to get as close to the closing price as possible. So it doesn't mean I'm going to be the last trade of the day. It means I'll be something close to that trade. Now, this doesn't show up on the test, but in terms of types of orders, it's in the test specifications, so they could. But I can call in orders for a net spread of. I call my broker and I say, I want to establish this debit spread for a net debit of 3. Or I want to establish this straddle for a net debit of 7. Or a net credit of 6, or a net credit of 7, whatever the case may be. Remember, a spread, long and short, so I'm going to be netting those two numbers, and I can put in an order for that net number to be what I'm interested in. Or if it's a straddle, I'm going to be buying, and to be either total premiums in or out, but total premiums. So I can call it in that way. Short sell strategies. Order marking. So you always have to mark the ticket long or short. And so, we're talking about stocks right now, but remember, when you're going short, that's going to be called an opening purchase. Opening purchases are how we establish short positions, whether it's a short position in the option, or what I'm discussing now, a short position in the stock. And so, you have to let us know what you're trying to do. Now, when you do an opening sale to establish that short position, we have a locate requirement. I'm not allowed to do a naked short. Naked short means I sell short the stock without having the stock or knowing I can make delivery of the stock. And that's a big no-no. So, we have a locate requirement here, as you see. So I'm going to ask my broker stock loan. That's called stock loan. I say, listen, I want to borrow 1,000 shares of whatever. What I've been using the last couple months is SeaWorld. So they say, Dean, let's see if we have have anybody who signed the loan consent form. The loan consent form, which is not mandatory, but that's where we're getting the borrowed stock. We're getting the borrowed stock from customers of the broker-dealer who have signed the loan consent form at the broker-dealer I do business with. Or if we don't have a customer at our firm that did that, has signed that loan consent form, which is not mandatory, we can get it from stock loan at some other broker-dealer. So we're going to borrow the security and deliver on T+2, and we're going to get the cash for doing so, right? And so we are going to sell borrowed stock. I joke in most businesses, when you sell things you don't own, it's called fraud, but not in our business. It's called selling short, right? Daniel Drew, a legendary Wall Street speculator, said those that sell what isn't his'n must eventually back or go to prison. So one thing we do when we're doing short sales is we are speculating. We're hoping to sell high and buy low. And the problem with doing that when I sell borrowed stock, right? If I don't hedge the borrowed stock position, if all I do is sell the stock short, I'm going to be exposed to unlimited risk. And so it might behoove me if I'm going to sell short that SeaWorld stock to hedge that. And there's two ways I can hedge that short stock position. There's two ways I can hedge that short stock position. One way I can hedge that is with a long call. And another way I can hedge that is with a buy stop order. So those would be the two ways I could do that. I would be foolish not, just to sell short the stock and not either buy a call or enter a buy stop order. I'd be foolish. Now, they don't get into the differences. The long call, I have to pay a premium. I have to be approved for options. I've got guaranteed execution at the strike. The buy stop doesn't cost me anything to enter it. I can move it around. And, so there are advantages and disadvantages to both. Now, a lot of people aren't aware that another reason we sell short securities is to engage in what's called arbitrage. Arbitrage, test question, is profiting from price discrepancies. Now, there's two types of arbitrage. There's what's called risk arbitrage. And riskless arbitrage. So not everybody who's going short is trying to profit from a declining stock price. Some people are just trying to do riskless arbitrage. Let's look at an example. Let's say that we have a bond that is convertible into 25 shares of the common stock. And the common stock is trading at 50. And so $50 a share. So, if we took parity, we took the 25 shares and we times it by the $50 per share the stock is trading at, we would find out that parity of the bond is, let me get my calculator. I always joke, but I'm not joking. I'm terrible at arithmetic, so I always like to use my calculator. They offer you one, so in Dean's case, I'm going to say, yeah, please give me a calculator. 1250. So that's parity of that bond. That's when those are equivalent transactions. And maybe I see that the current market price of the convertible bond, I'll just make this up, the current market price of the convertible bond is 1100, 110 in bond speak. So I have discovered a price discrepancy. Now, noticing a price discrepancy isn't, the issue here. That's not the test question. The arbitrage is profiting from that. So one thing I could do is what's called risk arbitrage. And maybe I would buy as many bonds as I can, but just to keep my math simple, let's say I buy 4 of these bonds. Let me get a different color again. So I buy 4 of these bonds for 1,100. And so I'd be at a total of, I'm buying 4 just to illustrate this, and 4 times 25 gives me a nice round lot. So that's why I'm choosing that. But in the real world, if you see one of these, give me a call. But in Series F and Fantasyland, markets are a little more efficient than this. But, I have found a free lunch here, so to speak. So I'm out $4,400 for that. And then what I do is I convert the bonds. This is riskless arbitrage. I convert the bonds. Now, the problem I have into 100 shares, convert the bonds into 100 shares. And if the stock is still 50, I'm going to make some money, right? So that would be leaving this position open. Risk arbitrage is leaving this position open. And I'm taking the chance that by the time we get to get the shares, bonds turned into the stock, that price is still 50, that the arbitrage opportunity is still there. And that's called risk arbitrage. That could work out better. I mean, the stock could be more than 50. It work out not so well because it's less than 50. So instead of doing risk arbitrage, I might want to do riskless arbitrage. And the way I do riskless arbitrage and lock in that price is by going long the bonds and short the stock at the same time. So this is an example where I'm not actually selling short the stock to profit from a declining stock price. I'm actually selling short the stock to lock in that price discrepancy. So again, I'm out 4,400 for the bonds, and I just sold short 100 shares of the stock at 50. And so I just I locked in that price discrepancy, and I just made $600. Now, by the way, I'll cover the short sale is when I get the 100 shares from conversion of the bond, I give it back to the person I borrowed it from. And so that's called riskless arbitrage. So let's review the test questions. First test question, what is the definition of arbitrage? It's profiting from price discrepancies. Test question number 2, there's 2 versions of arbitrage. There's risk arbitrage. That's where I don't go long and short at the same time. I go long the bonds, I convert it into the stock, and I hope that by the time that all gets done, I either have a bigger profit or still have a profit because there's still a price discrepancy. But the riskless arbitrage version is where I go long and short at the same time. Then I've locked in that price discrepancy. We could do it in other securities, but this is where it shows up on the test, right? Is that there's a mispricing based on parity and a convertible. Again, low probability that you get this as a test question, but that's the one they tend to use to test you on this idea of arbitrage. We have securities that we lend that are hard to borrow. We have securities. So there's a list of securities that are easy to borrow and hard to borrow. And the point here, again, from the broker dealer standpoint, is if it's easy to borrow, not hard to borrow, I will go ahead and let you initiate the short sale knowing that I'm going to be able to borrow and make delivery on your behalf. But if it's hard to borrow, then I'm going to say, well, wait a minute, I'm going to have to go locate this thing. I'm not going to let you initiate right now. So, some stocks, you say, oh, I can't believe I just was able to short the SeaWorld, no problem. And that's because it's on the easy to borrow list versus the hard to borrow list. Now, regardless of whether you're going long or short, if a customer has a fail to deliver, this is actually called the customer protection rule. And, it's to prevent, customers from ending up with accidental short position, because whether it's an accidental short position or intentional, it's going to be a problem. You'd hate to find out you sold 100 shares of Google long and you never made delivery and we didn't close you out. And so this is called the customer protection rule. You don't need to know that's what it's called, but we must close out customers. We must close out customers on a failed delivery. That means they sold the stock and they haven't made delivery no later than 10 business days after the settlement date. Think about it. Now, by the way, broker dealer can do it sooner. I just can't do it later. Can't do it later. So, if you sold the stock, I get a couple extension, a mailgram, and then I sell you. Now, remember, if there's a profit, I have to give that to you, right? But then I say, you free rider, you sold the stock, you never made delivery, whatever the case may be, or bought the stock, never paid for it. But we must close out customers who fail to deliver. I mean, they didn't make a delivery of the stock. No, most firms today actually have a system that when they execute the sell order until either the stock was in the account or had been borrowed. So there's technical ways around this. And then best execution obligations we talked about, but the other thing that might show up, I just did I shouldn't say just, last quarter, I was doing some, coaching calls, a series of coaching calls. And, the last call is just kind of like the night before the exam and saying, what do you got on your mind? And this young lady had brought up something that I said, I haven't seen in years, but here how it goes. And then she called me, she passed, and she said, I saw that. And so what she had asked me about, and which I'm sharing you with now, is error in execution versus error in a report. You know, if it's an error, I'll give you an example in just a little bit, but if it's an error in execution, the broker-dealer is liable. In other words, you told me to buy the stock at 15, and I got accidentally on a limit order, and I bought it at 15.05. That's on the broker-dealer. Error in report, the customer's obligated. So, I call you and I say, hey, Joe, I told you we bought that stock at 15, and then I just found out I made an error in that report to you. You paid 15.05. Now, if that happens too often, maybe Joe's going to get a new broker. But an error in a report, the customer's obligated. Now, I told you that I was going to try and run function 4.1, which I've just finished, with 4.2, so we could close this thing out. But I'm trying to keep these things in a halfway reasonable chunk. And it looks like I'm at the 30-minute chunk. And so I'm going to start this, stop this explication here. And the next explication will be 4.2. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong sound effect. Oh, that's the wrong one too. Let's see if I can get the right one. There we go. All right. Well, hey, like I say before, subscribe so you don't miss premieres. Tell your friends about the channel. I am going to make this an immediate premiere immediate to the available, because we have a loyal person who's testing Monday, as I said. So, putting this out on the weekend or something, he might not have access to it. He's a big fan of these. He's been a loyal supporter, both here and on our Reddit community. So I'm going to try and knock these out for him before his Monday test day. All right. I'll see you on the next explication, and we'll get this posted right away.